I gave my baby away because I wanted to be a city girl instead of a teen mom. Now, after years of being the casting couch's main character, I want my baby back, but my ex refuses to let me see him. My son was born when both me and his father were 16. My parents wanted me to terminate the pregnancy, but I begged my parents to let me keep the baby because I felt so attached as it grew inside me. The father said he'd step up if I decided to keep it. I was glad that I still had his support no matter what. My parents let me keep it but wouldn't let my baby's father move in, so we got our own apartment and started school at the local university. My cousin invited me to a frat party one night, and that's where I met Tyler and I instantly fell in love. The problem was that I was dating the father of my baby, but Tyler made me feel alive. I hadn't felt alive in so long, and my boyfriend could never make me feel this way no matter how hard he tried. He asked for my number that night and we talked all the time. He always flirted with me, asked me out on dates, and he knew about my boyfriend. Eventually, I had an affair with him and it only made my boring life exciting. It was the thrill of being caught by my boyfriend and the love I felt for Tyler that kept me going. Luckily, my boyfriend was too busy with AP testing and graduation to notice our baby was still getting taken care of, but I noticed myself forgetting about my responsibilities because of Tyler. He then wanted to move to Chicago and asked me to go with him along with my child. I was more than happy to, except for the fact I couldn't take my son away from his father. We had an agreement that worked for years and doing this would mess up everything. Then Tyler suggested something I couldn't turn down, going to Chicago by myself. The thought of posting up on the old block with Lamron and them was too much to pass up. I was set on my decision and only told my cousin, who was upset that I would be doing this to my son and boyfriend. I made her promise not to tell anyone, though it seemed like for once I could do something I wanted to do that didn't revolve around dirty diapers and breastfeeding. It was my one chance of freedom and I had to take it. So I texted my boyfriend that I was too young to be a mother, that I was in love with someone else, and asked that he not contact me anymore. I didn't even let him reply before I blocked him on everything. From that moment, I was going to live a brand new life with Tyler. I had to tell my parents what I was doing because they would ask questions eventually, and they also didn't support my plans. But I was doing this for me and that's all that mattered. Nothing they could say would stop me. I enrolled in a college when I got to Chicago and the first 2 years were a massive blur. I thought I would be free, but I was so depressed. If it wasn't for the spent partying and drinking, I wouldn't have made it. During this time, a man appeared at my door with papers for me to sign, and me being too wasted, I didn't even bother reading it. I honestly didn't care about anything during this time and my mental health suffered so bad. This was worse than raising a kid at 16 years old. Luckily, Tyler stood by me through my darkest times and promised me he would always be around to help me. I was still so in love with this man and we got married a year after I graduated. I got out of that depressing period of my life and got a job as a high school art teacher. I'm actually happy now and don't need to drink every day to cope with my life. And thank God too, because I got pregnant with Tyler's baby. After a long talk, we decided it was time to get my son to come with us. I wasted too many years without him and now he needed to come back to his mom. I stalked my ex-boyfriend's Facebook page and saw he also moved to Chicago through a mutual friend. I got his address. I was so prepared to see my son and how big he had gotten and then take him to live with me. I was picturing our future together and it was a good one. But when I went over there and knocked on the door, my ex-boyfriend was really cold to me. He asked me what I wanted in the most aggressive tone possible. I explained that I wanted to see my son and he said no. Apparently I had given up my rights as his mom and I'm not welcomed in his life. I called BS because I would never do such a thing. Then I remembered that dreaded document minute I signed while wasted and realized it was a notary public stating I was giving up my rights. He even had the documents to show me as proof. He said that because I signed I couldn't see him. I called him a crappy person and an a-hole before breaking down and begging to let me adopt my son so that I can have rights again. He didn't even say anything. He just shut the door in my face. I have no idea what to do now, and all I want is to see my son. Just because I made a dumb decision when I was younger and abandoned them doesn't mean I don't have the right to be his mom anymore. He came out of my body. He is mine. No matter how long I was away from him. This is not fair. Why do men treat women this way? I sat on the curb outside my ex-boyfriend's apartment building, trying to make sense of what had just happened. How could I have been so reckless and irresponsible? Giving up my baby was the biggest mistake of my life, and now it seemed like I had lost him forever. But I couldn't give up. I had to find a way to make things right. I knew I needed help, so I called my cousin, the only person who knew about my past and my son. She listened to my story and, despite her initial anger, agreed to help me. Together, we started researching legal options. We found out that, in some cases, it was possible to contest the termination of parental rights if it could be proven that the decision was made under duress or without full understanding of the consequences. Armed with this information, I decided to fight for my son. I hired a lawyer and filed a petition to have my parental rights reinstated. The process was long and painful, filled with legal battles and emotional turmoil. My ex fought back, claiming that I had willingly signed away my rights and that I had no right to disrupt their lives now. But I didn't give up. I attended therapy, worked on myself, and proved to the court that I had changed. I was no longer the reckless teenager who had abandoned her child. I was now a responsible adult, ready and willing to be a mother. After months of legal battles, the court finally ruled in my favor. My parental rights were reinstated, and I was granted visitation rights with my son. It was a bittersweet victory. I had lost so much time with him, but I was determined to make up for it. I started spending as much time with my son as possible, building a relationship with him and showing him that I was there for him, no matter what. It was a long and difficult road, but eventually, my son began to trust me again. Today, my son and I have a strong relationship. We've worked through the pain and the hurt, and we've come out stronger on the other side. I may have made mistakes in the past, but I'm determined to be the best mother I can be from now on. And I'll never give up on him again. Thank you again to those who have listened to me.